When we think of training design, we not only have to think of the macro issues, so to speak, in terms of what techniques we'll be using, what materials, whether we have flip charts available or whether we have media projectors and so forth. All of those issues will come into play, and we have to think about other design issues. Should it be on the job? Should it be off the job? Should it be one person at a time? Should it be groups? All of those questions that have to do with designing training. But one also comes to the need for micro planning, and that is that we have to think for each lesson and for each person, what are the objectives that we have in terms of transferring knowledge, and what is it that that person needs to learn. Now, what we sometimes call learning objectives do come by other names. For example, they have been called instructional objectives, and it means that we as trainers are wondering, well, what it is that we have as objectives in terms of the instruction. A popular term in education today is called outcomes-based education, and that means that we're really trying to define at the end of this training, what will this person know and what will this person be able to do. And that's another approach to it. It was expressed differently in some decades past by another term which was called terminal objectives. In other words, at the end of the training, what is it that people will be able to do, and what is it that they will know that they don't know when they begin. All of these are different ways of just asking that question. What are our objectives? What is it that we want people to be able to do at the end of the training that they're about to undertake? And so one sets these learning objectives in little bite-sized pieces as you go through different lessons and different sessions in the process of training. If it's a coaching, it may be that week by week you will set what those learning objectives will be. If it's a seminar, you may say, well, that for each session of 2 sessions in the morning and 1 session in the afternoon, you may set a micro objective and say, this is what we're trying to do in this session. But each one of these has to be clearly stated and understood by the trainer so that they know what is it that I'm trying to accomplish in a particular period of time, and that is usually called learning objective. Now, in the outcomes-based education, what we do with assessment is we can now use these objectives as instructors to see if the trainees have learned to do the various micro steps in the learning process. Now, we begin with these learning objectives and turn them into lesson plans, and this is another part of the design. Because once we've established that, let's say an objective is to teach people to make a pot of tea. Well, you then have to think, well, what materials do we need and what steps do we have to go through to transfer this know-how to someone? And so the lesson plan emerges following the instructional objectives, and that is that it will break down into certain steps, and lesson plans can be presented in different ways. Sometimes we put the main points in one column, and perhaps in the column to the right we would indicate, well, what are the materials that we're going to need to do this. So if you're teaching someone to make a pot of tea, you're going to need things like a teapot, a burner, a tea bag, some water, and so on. And your lesson plan is going to outline what it is that you will need in terms of materials and in what order you will transfer the knowledge. And with the beginning objective, you will be able to say, well, can I establish then at the end of this period of half an hour's training that this person really knows how to make a pot of tea and how to do it professionally and how to serve it and how to make sure you put the milk in first and then put the tea in later and so forth. So it's a lesson plan that helps the instructor to outline in terms of design what it's going to take to impart this knowledge. So the objectives as well as the lesson plan and how it will be delivered are very important parts of training.